We are back with episode number, you guys ready? 263. And there you go, 263. And today we have a special guest with us, Michael Gilbert of Flotsam and Jetsam fame.
What's going on, you guys?
We're going to spend most of the time chatting with him. But quickly, before we get into that, we want to do our picks of the week from Carcass John. So let me get our graphic ready. Ready? POW, go. We're very professional.
All of us are so busy that I don't know how we can ever get that thing knocked out. But typically, Michael, what I do is I pick a rock pick and a metal pick that I think every metal needs in their collection. So let me just start with the rock pick that sort of is a crossover. And only because over the weekend I got to go to one of our local people-supported radio stations, you know, the kind of independent KNON. They had a benefit show, and I won a goodie bag, and it had this beautiful gem in it. Oh, this would be the Black Sabbath Volume 4 Super Deluxe. And it's got it's got a remastered CD, and it's got a bunch of outtakes and rehearsal takes and live stuff, and it's super cool. So that's my rock pick of the week is Black Sabbath Volume 4. There's some real bangers on this thing, so like I said, this is sort of like the border between metal and rock. And of course, my parents certainly thought this was heavy metal back in the day, and we kind of deemed Black Sabbath as the grandfathers of heavy metal. But here's my real metal pick, and it was sort of a toss-up. So my first pick was Forced Entry. Anybody heard of them?
Yep.
From Seattle, Washington. Uncertain Future is the name of this one. I really dig these guys. They're like a power trio of thrash.
Absolutely killer band.
Yeah, and this thing is just a ripper. And then I got to shout out my buddy Derek Hinesley down in Houston. He found a holy grail item for me. This is the Violence Eternal Nightmare Vomit Bag, 10-inch. And it's got Eternal Nightmare on one side and Phobophobia on the other. And I have literally been looking for this thing for years and years.
It's all dried up.
And all the vomit is dried up. I thought about how I activate it again, but I'm not going to take my chances. But anyway, so those
Next
are my
time you're sick, get yourself a bag.
Yeah, I'll just get myself a bag and add a little bit to it. But even to find one with the hype sticker too, it's pretty incredible. So shout out to Derek. I saw him at Hell's Heroes, and man, it was a fun time. So my two picks, Black Sabbath Volume 4 and Forced Entry, Uncertain Future.
Right on. Fantastic picks. Oh, by the way, before we get into Flotsam, hey, Michael, up here in the corner up here, that's he's a hometown boy from Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
That's our Steve lived there for years and years and years.
Yeah, okay. I grew up there. I grew up in Maryville.
Did you ever see Flots in a club?
Yeah, I've seen Flots everywhere from the Mason Jar to the biggest show I saw you guys at was 95 with Megadeth and a brand new band called Korn and another brand new band called Fear Factory as the openers. So I believe it was 95 at Compton Terrace.
Compton Terrace.
That was a great show.
That was a pretty unique a run there for Korn because nobody really knew who they were at the time, and by the end they exploded on that tour. That's the one where "Blind" came out, that song, the single, and it was just it boom, just blew up everywhere. And they went from being the openers on the bill to I think they ended up as direct support by the end of it for Megadeth.
It was crazy because Fear Factory blew up too. I mean, they both went from nobody bands to platinum selling probably by the end of that tour. It was crazy.
Yeah, it definitely put them on the map for sure.
Yeah,
those are fun times, man. Those concerts were a lot of fun. Crazy stuff.
I wish they wouldn't have torn it down. It was hot, but that was one of my favorite places for shows. Like 30,000 people. And they would pack it,
It's in like a crater. It's on the Indian reservation. It's like a giant crater with a stage in the middle of it. But the crater's still there. But I don't think the stage is there anymore. It might be.
No, they tore it down. They did a video, or I saw on the news as they were pulling it down with the crane after 20 years or 30 years, however long it was there. But that was a. Like it was in the middle of the desert, so it was hot as hell. But man, I saw so many great concerts there.
I'm telling you, desert parties are the best. When I was in high school, we used to have these desert parties. My high school band, we would go set up in the middle of the desert, and
Yep.
hundreds of people would show up. The cops, we'd get the helicopters, from the police showing up. Wow, it was great. So much fun. So much dust, though. If you're familiar with Valley Fever, that's
Yep.
definitely like
That's
a
a real
petri
thing.
dish for that.
That's awesome.
And there was. They would always have the tents with the paramedics on standby for all the people with heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So.
Oh yeah, we did have a show. We played with Pantera in Chandler, Arizona, and it was during the When the Storm Comes Down album, and there was a storm and somebody got struck by lightning. There was a kid walking in, and they said he was okay, I think, afterwards, but they said his belt buckle actually had melted to his body.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Wow.
Now that's just what I heard. I don't know how true it is. I'm just glad the guy lived, that's a terrible, man. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, the lightning out there, some scary stuff. I always thought it was cool. We used to go outside during the lightning storms because it was crazy. And then we had some lightning hit about 3 inches from the side of our patio, and never went outside again. It's a different thing out there. But yeah, so it's cool to have a hometown band on here, though. I mean, I grew up with you guys. I grew up with, you guys and Reich were two of the bands I saw the most growing up. So,
right on.
Yeah, we still have yet to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we played a desert show one time, and it was in an Indian reservation. But like you said, there was hundreds of people, a lot of not Native Americans. But we were the last band that's supposed to play, and there was no lights. And they said, "Yeah, lights are coming, lights are coming." We kept waiting for the lights to come, and right before we went on stage, man, here come all these old beat up pickup trucks surround the stage, and they turn their headlights on. Lights are here. We played,
and those Indian guys
wasn't what I was expecting, but it worked.
There's no joke in the mosh pits, man. They used to tear people up.
Yeah, there was the Indian reservations. They were insane, and
they're brutal.
And the security didn't care, man. They just let them go at it. So I was like,
yeah,
whatever. Anyhow, we got Ryan Roebuck from the Mighty Motivic with us. We got Rob Colwell from the band that shall not be named. And then TJ Lewis checking in.
But the mastering tech extraordinaire who's been remastering all the Flotsam and Jetsam records there. So.
That's true. Yeah, Rob Colwell. He remastered the. For vinyl, high for vinyl, because it was loud on the CD. It was way too loud for vinyl. It would have been all crackly and stuff. But anyhow, let's get into it. Why don't you share a little bit with us about? I mean, I'm sure most people know who Flotsam is, but I'd like to hear some of the beginning stories and what happened and how you guys kind of formed. And I've been a fan. I bought the first album as a new release, and so I've been a fan ever since.
That was almost 40 years ago. I guess I can start it out like that. 40 years ago, what is it? 40 years ago, maybe
3 years ago.
Yeah, I actually went and saw these guys a couple times at the Mason Jar, which you guys are talking about. And I was only 17 at the time. And, my mom would drop me and my friends off and to go see this band, up and coming band, Flotsam and Jetsam. And the first time I saw them, I think they were opening for it was King Diamond or Merciful Fate, one of the two. I don't know. I was totally blown away. When I walked out of there, I was like, man, I want to be in that band. And about 6 months later, I came across a friend that knew Eric, and they were actually looking for another guitar player. Their guitar player wasn't working out for them, kind of going a different direction they wanted to go writing wise. So I ended up calling them. They gave me their demo. I learned their demo. And the next day I was meeting up with Newsted to go audition. And I got through about half of one of the songs. He goes, "You want to be in our band?" Heck yeah, I do. So that was the beginning right there. And from then on, it's just been metal.
So you were on,
there you go.
You were on the second
There's
album or the first album?
There's a young, I can't get young Michael Gilbert right there.
Newsted was on the first album.
Steve always makes fun of my hair. He's like, "Yeah, you had great Jane Fonda looking hair back then." It was pretty Jane Fonda-ish.
And then we get old and all our hair falls out. That's what's happening to me. So
sometimes.
Yeah, I've been on all of them. I took a little bit of a hiatus just after we had some management problems. We had some disagreements and stuff like that. There was a lot of money that was missing. And I was just like, I got to take care of my kids. I can't keep doing this and struggling with what's going on. So I took about a 10-year hiatus, and then I was writing at the time too. So during that time I was writing, and I was sending stuff to Newsted, and he ended up calling me saying, "Hey, I want to work on some of this stuff with you. I like some of these tunes." So he got directly involved with Ugly Noise, and he co-wrote another one. That's it. He co-wrote another one on there called Giddy Up. And at that point, we were thinking that maybe he was going to come back to the band and at least do some shows and maybe do the record with us and stuff like that. But, he's like one of the biggest rock stars ever. So he didn't really have the time to do it. And, whatever. Good luck to him. He's a super ultra talented musician and one of the smartest, funniest people I know.
Yeah, that's I actually did the crowdfunder for this one, which is why I have the autographed copy. I love this album. I told these guys pick your top 3 Flotsam and Jetsam albums, and this is actually my number 2. I think this thing's brilliant.
Oh,
I mean,
thanks.
it's a little different from the other Flots
It
albums,
is.
but it's creative and hooky and heavy, and it's not all thrash for thrash sake, which is probably one of the reasons I like it so much.
Yeah, it's a very open, more of it's still a metal record, but it's more like it's almost kind of like a Judas Priest type of, it's very open. The guitars aren't like super, what would you say, crunchy, like Metallica or anything like that, But, we were writing some different stuff. I'm always trying to experiment and seeing what we can do new and what we could push. We actually used some keyboard sequencing on that just for some industrial stuff, because I dig Nine Inch Nails. I like Rammstein, and I don't even know if I'm saying that right, Rammstein, or however you say the name of their band.
Close enough.
And how they do all that sequencing. I love that. I think it's heavy, and I think it's just it just adds some really cool stuff. And I know a lot of old school fans are like, no, don't do it. But I like that stuff,
But you guys were never just a straight up thrash band. I remember even on the first and second record, people were saying that's not really thrash; it's something different. You guys,
it's like
it was always thrash, but there was
thrash,
always a little more to it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't even know what we were doing. We were just trying to play super fast and write good songs. And I guess I'm grateful that I'm living in this timeline right now, because this is never going to happen again, and I'm glad that we were a part of it and kind of help, make some contributions to it. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. Actually would be my number 1 pick, because it was my first album I owned by you guys. So I absolutely still to this day love this thing and still play it. It's one of my favorites. But this was basically your first baby, right? Your first record. And tell us a little bit about that and how that felt, putting out your first record, and Metal Blade, and anything else you want to tell us that good or bad about it.
Well, what was cool about that is when I first joined the band, the very first song that I wrote was "I Live You Die." I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one or not. It was on Metal Massacre. I don't know. I got it hanging on my wall, 6
it's right here too,
or something. Oh, okay, there it is. And Brian Slagle from Metal Blade decided after Metal Massacre he wanted to sign us, and so he signed us, and that's the record we ended up making. I was still in high school, I was like, oh man, I hit the big time. Oh my God, I'm gonna go make a record. Went to Hollywood and just did the whole Hollywood lifestyle for during the duration of making that record, and it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a different thing back then than it is now, making records.
Oh yeah. I was actually, because I had heard that "I Live You Die." I was kind of surprised when it didn't show up on this album back then, but then it ended up showing up on the 12-inch single later on. I was like, all right, right on.
And I think that single that you were just holding up, that I believe that was a bootleg at some point.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's Roadrunner Records out of Europe. Yeah. It's got Flotzilla on one side and "I Live You Die" on the B side.
We must have approved it at some point.
Was it a live?
Yeah, I mean,
was it a live track? It's on No Place for Disgrace.
No, this is the I believe it's the demo version that's on here, because that
demo, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
I don't think
the actual. There's a studio version of it that's on No Place for Disgrace. You're right about that.
Yeah. So that ended up changing. So after that record, then you lost your bass player to another band, and
Yeah,
I'm
little
sure that
band.
was
Who is that
yeah,
band? Right?
little obscure band nobody knows about.
Metal Liquor? I can't.
That's it, Metal Liquor. And unfortunately, that I'm sure that threw you guys into a bit of a spin for because I mean I'm sure he was just an important part of the band as everybody else was. So
He was super important. He did. It's funny you bring this up because I was just in my garage a couple of days ago when I was looking through some old memorabilia, and I found all his old ledgers that he used to keep when we were doing the books and stuff like that. We were playing the country club at in LA, and we were doing these little small tours around the Southwest area. And he turned over all that stuff to me, all the books and everything, and said, you know, I'm going to be going to Metallica. You gotta take care of this stuff now. I'm like, okay. So I have his old original list of who he would send the demos to, and with all handwritten by him. And it's pretty cool. I should frame some of it because it's pretty interesting how well he kept our books and stuff like that. So when he decided to go to Metallica, you know, you can't pass that up. You know, you get asked to join Metallica. Even back then, when they were still up and coming, you just don't pass that up. So we kind of gave him the scoot out. It's like, dude, you got to go do this, man. This is going to be a big deal for you. And he passed everything over, and you know, he became larger than life. And we continued with what he was doing, and you know, we ended up here right now. So all is good.
yeah, so we ended up putting out the next album, jumping up to Elektra Records.
Yep.
Which was I mean, I don't know if they were considered a major label at the time, but they were definitely a bigger label than Metal Blade with bigger distribution.
Yeah, Elektra, they had Ride the Lightning. And so that's one of the reasons that we got signed, because our A&R rep, our new A&R rep after Metal Blade was Michael Alago, and he's the guy that signed Metallica to Elektra. So when we came aboard Elektra, they thought we were going to kind of just word of mouth, same thing was going to happen to us, you know. But Metallica is a unique story, and that's probably never going to happen again, ever again, with a band the way it did with them, you know.
I don't think people remember either. It didn't happen for Metallica right away either. It took I mean, they were underground for 5 or 6 years before it really blew up, you know.
Yeah, even
when they blew up in a way.
Yeah, even when they were
even without any kind of marketing or anything like that, just the word of mouth, they would have blown up anyway. It was just, it was new, it was great, and it was amazing stuff. So,
yep, I agree. So yeah. You guys recorded a cover of Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, which was that something that you guys wanted to do, or was that something kind of pushed on you by the label?
No, we wanted to do it just to see if we could, and I think we ruined that song. We've ruined it, no doubt about it. But it was fun doing it. They wanted some sort of a cover tune, and we couldn't decide on anything. But we ended up all coming up with that, going, okay, well, whatever, let's try it. You know, there's probably a million other cover tunes that would have been better to try, but that was a ballsy maneuver on our part. But I'm sure Elton John will never listen to us again. If he's never heard that, he's probably like,
And Elton John doesn't have a leg to stand on. You ever heard the songs you recorded with Saxon? They're horrible, absolutely horrible. He recorded on a song called
Standing. You said he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Doesn't he?
I'm just talking about
standing.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I know that was the joke, but yeah, he's he did that song Party Till You Puke with Saxon, and it's oh my gosh, it's awful. I love Saxon; they're one of my favorite bands, but that song is just, what were you thinking?
Yeah, but when you're a British band, you can't say no to Elton John, you know.
I know. Elton John walks into the studio, you listen. I get it. I mean,
I'm going to disagree with you, Michael. I think that cover was pretty killer, actually. And in fact, given Elton John or Flotsam, I would take Flotsam.
I like the song too.
Oh, I love you, man. Thank you.
I like it too.
Song for Elton John, though. I mean, that was pretty heavy compared to the rest of that record, you know.
And
I'd always just heard it was forced on you guys by the label. That's why I asked. So I was always curious if that was true or not.
Yeah, I dig it. I thought it, like you said, it was a ballsy move. And but you know, there was a certain heaviness about Elton John live. But please don't take this the wrong way. He's not heavy by any means. But there was I mean, if you'd seen him live on the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour, there was a certain heavy rock and roll vibe to that. It was not like the I hope they don't call this the blues or whatever. That it wasn't the ballady type of stuff. It was legit rock and roll. But I thought, man, that's stepping out. See, to me, when you do a cover tune, it should be something that's so, it's kind of like when Sepultura did a Massive Attack cover of Angel. I mean, that's super unusual. That would be nothing that you would expect. And yet they pull it off. I mean, they did Bullet in the Blue Sky by U2 also. So I think when you do a cover, I think you really go out on a ledge, and I think you guys did, and you killed it. And that's not just
too.
Yeah. I've always thought that.
It sounds like a Flotsam and Jetsam song. It doesn't sound like an Elton John song to me. So that's what you're supposed to do with a cover. You're supposed to make it sound like your own, right? So we're getting a lot of comments, people saying No Place for Disgrace is a masterpiece, and I'm getting a bunch of them. So I'm trying to keep up with the comments. But if anybody watching wants to ask a question, please put the question in there so I can put the question up. I'll put all the other stuff up too. And yes, I heard the people saying you couldn't hear Michael. I turned his mic up a little bit, so he should be good now.
So
going back to Elton John, he also has on that Goodbye to Yellow Brick Road. He's got Funeral for a Friend on that one, which is like that is like an epic intro. I listen to that. That gives me the chills when I listen to that stuff. So
sure,
pretty heavy.
Yeah, we're all classic rock fans here too, so you're not going to get anybody disagreeing with you on that.
So getting back to this idea of our top 3 Flotsam and Jetsam albums, I'm pretty sure that we all agree about the first 2. I'm more interested in the third.
Scott already showed all 3 of mine, so
my third. My first is
my third, so we already covered all 3 of them.
Well,
see, now that's my second now, because I love that record.
Yeah, so do
my
I.
Third's probably going to
do it again today.
My third's probably going to disagree with everybody's. Ready?
Far be it from me to disagree, because that never happens, right? But
there you go.
You can see that.
Yep.
I thought about that one too, and that one was hard for me to find. I couldn't find it anywhere here in Atlanta. I actually had to order it from Zia direct.
I had to order it from Zia too, because my pre-order never arrived.
Yeah, that thing sold out everywhere.
We can definitely talk about this, because AFM kind of dropped the ball on the last release in a big way, because I know we're going back to we're coming to the end or whatever, the end of our repertoire, and you guys probably want to go sequentially through. But
no, not at all.
No, we're okay.
That record, and I hate to dog AFM about this, but the marketing on it was only like a month long, and it was there was not much to it. And I think that was probably one of our greatest records that we've made. And it's a little bit of a shame, because it kind of died like after 6 months, and then what do you do with it, But AFM is under a different umbrella now. I think people were just kind of just going through the motions. Let's just get it out. And then they were just like, who cares,
Yeah,
so,
and it was one of those
speculating
things,
about that, but
I didn't even hear about it coming out. And I mean, we're on here all the time, so we're always talking about upcoming stuff. I didn't hear about it coming out until Scott told me that he didn't get the pre-order. And then I looked I couldn't find it anywhere in the US. And then luckily I decided to check Zia, and Zia had a few copies of it. But yeah, it was hard to find.
We didn't even get our comps for it. So I was a little irritated at that. There was a special release of some splatter vinyls. Never saw any of it. I'm sure they sold them, but whatever. I like that stuff for my wall. I have a wall with everything we've ever done on it, and I always like to collect it, but not for that one.
What's up, brother Lee?
So do you have a copy of Drift? Because that's my number 3, believe it or not.
I do.
That was the tour I saw him on. I believe 95 was Drift, right?
So
95 was Drift, yeah.
Maybe talk about the kind of change of pace, for the lack of a better term, in Drift and Quattro and some of those middle catalog records, because that was to me, it was a drastic change. To others, it was just like, it's a natural progression. But if you can speak to that, and
I can go right into that. I'll start with the third record though, like When the Storm Comes Down, because we were still feeling some stuff out at that point, because Newsted was still freshly gone, and we got a new bass player. Troy Gregory was on that one, so we went to and did the record with Alex Perry-Alice in New York, in Ithaca, New York, upstate New York, and it came out, and it sounded great in like pre-production and everything like that. And it seemed like the digitalness of it or something happened in the mastering. I don't know what happened, but it definitely needs something now. It's, if you listen to it, it's missing some things, in my opinion. I'd like a remix and a remaster on the whole thing. You know, I'd love for Alex Perry to come back in and remix the thing and let's redo it. That'd be awesome. So then that one came out, and then everything kept kind of escalating. Quattro came out after that. That was our 4th record. And we started working with Neil Kernan, which Neil Kernan did Drift as well. And it is kind of a progression going from Quattro to Drift, but the record label, they brought in some outside writers and stuff. They were searching for us to do something else. They had a country guy come in and help us do some outside writing. We're like, this is Quattro. And so we were kind of like, okay, you know, we'll do whatever. But the songs ended up even just going back to the way we originally wrote them, you know. And the outside writers were like, we can't do anything with these guys, you know. We don't. They're fine what they're doing. And it was more, there was some heavy stuff on it, but it was kind of a more like heavy rock with a metal edge to it. We were personally trying to do some stuff with our songwriting to write better choruses and better verses and stuff like that, you know, because that's what it seemed like it was missing. And When the Storm Comes Down and stuff like that, which now, if you listen to our newer records, all that stuff is there that we were looking to try to do. So over 40 years, I think we finally got it.
Well, we've talked about that. The last 3 records have been like a great mix of straight up thrash with just some killer hooks, and you know, it's kind of a best of both worlds type thing on the last few. It's really worked out.
And Eric sounds great. I mean,
yeah, we saw you guys here at the Haltham Theater in Fort Worth. That's where I am. I'm in Fort Worth, and man, I was shocked that it was. I mean, I guess I shouldn't have been shocked because you guys are professionals and you know how to play your instruments, but it just the whole vibe was reminiscent of the you know, back in the No Grace for Disgrace days. It's like you've recaptured that fire again. But it was ferocious. I really dug it, and I was surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did, because other bands have gone on and have kind of spiraled into a more commercial sound and just sort of kind of lost their roots, so to speak. They've pruned the tree so much that the roots just start dying.
Mm-hmm. I saw you guys in Albuquerque not that long ago, and they were fantastic. I mean, Ken Mary on drums. Record. Oh my gosh, that dude's a beast.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I mean, he doesn't even look like he doesn't. He's doing all that double bass stuff, and he's up there and he's pounding. But he doesn't like. He's not even moving. It's like nothing for him. I was amazed watching him play.
He plays louder than any drummer I've ever played with. When we sat down and did auditions with him, I've talked about this before. Like when Bittner left and Ken Mary came in, I'm like, okay, you know, how's this gonna go? He looked great on the demos he was sending the videos of, and he sat down and went seriously within like 20 seconds. I'm like, that's our drummer. That's the guy right there. And he's such a nice person. You would never be able to tell he is the animal that he is on drums. Like he is ruthless on his drums. He's great. Well, that kind of brings me to the AK thing too. You know, because you guys were talking about AK being. We don't get it. He's like a freak of nature. We always think, we're like, when's his voice going to give out? And it never does, you know? So it's like, it seems like it's getting stronger over the years, which is an anomaly, and it's kind of freaking us out. But so as long as AK can keep going, then we can all keep going. We are gonna keep going for sure. We all feel like we're still like 20 years old. So
I was going to say that Ken Mary, he is a beast. I remember seeing him with Chastain.
He's been in like 40 bands. It's insane.
Yeah, but he hits really hard. Yeah.
So we got a couple of questions from some viewers, if you want to field a couple of them. One of them wants to know, question from Mike, what made you guys re-record No Place for Disgrace album?
Okay, so yeah, I'll talk about this. And I would advise any band out there to never, ever re-record one of your records. We got lucky and dodged a bullet on this one because we wanted we couldn't remix it. We wanted to get the master tapes and remix the record and put it out there, remaster it and everything. And we couldn't find the master tapes. We don't know. We've heard that they've been burned, all kinds of stuff. Who knows? Maybe somebody recorded like poison over them, or rat or something like that. Who knows? But anyways, so we just decided, we all have recording equipment, might as well just do it. Let's just redo it. We got some guest appearances from Chris Poland and Mark Simpson, who previously played in the band when I was gone, and Ed Carlson. So it was definitely, it was fun to do and redo it. And we kind of slowed it down a little bit, which again, I would not advise anybody to do that, especially if you're a thrash band. If anything, speed it up. But we slowed some things down a little bit so you can get the crunchy guitars going, So, like I said, I can only end it on.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like it too. Honestly, but when I'm in the mood for No Place for Disgrace, I pull out the original. But I do like the re-recording. Only a few bands have pulled it off, though. You guys did a good job. The Cavalera guys are killing it right now with their remakes. And Testament, when Alex Skolnick came back with First Strike Still Deadly, they pulled it off. But it's hard it's really hard to do that.
I mean, one of the labels that I worked for liked the album so much they did a reissue of it from Metal Blade put it on CD and cassette. So anyhow, one more question. We got a catch from Canada, Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lines. Mike, do you know if the MCA year's albums will ever see a reissue? Man, I'd love to see that stuff come out on vinyl or somebody else to license it, but MCA doesn't seem to do that kind of thing. So
no, and I don't, like I said, with those, I don't even know where the master tapes are at on it, or like a reissue as far as like putting it on vinyl, or like
that's what I'd like to see on vinyl.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. You can find some bootleg stuff out there on vinyl, but coming from us, nothing yet. I'd love to put Quattro out on vinyl.
Yeah, we got a couple new people chiming in. Glenn Rogers from Primal and Hyrax checking in.
What's up?
And Nanoy. I don't know Nanoy, but what's going on?
Representing from
Your
Pagan
life
Fire.
passes you by.
So yeah, cool. We can go into the next album if you want. Where were we anyhow? Because after that, we didn't talk about this one yet. Which this one's, for those who are watching and don't know, this is coming out on Record Store Day this year. There's only, I can't remember if it's 500 or 1,000 copies. It's not a lot, and it's only going to be available in North America. So, but yeah, it came out great. It sounds fantastic. Michael hasn't even got to hear it yet because his copy's sitting in his post office box.
I think it was 800 or 900, right?
What's that? I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, but it's probably it could be up to 1,000. It's no more than 1,000, but I love this album. So
that's got one of my favorite back covers. I've always loved that all the songs are different bands fonts.
And the label added the worst
idea that was
the Surgery. They added the song Surgery to the end of it too, which was I guess on the Japanese pressing.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to presume, because I did the layout for this one. I didn't want to presume some band's logo and put on there. So I just used the cool looking metal font. And
that looks cool to me.
They were like, you should do it in another band font. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not presuming that's those are probably bands that influenced them. I'm not presuming that anything. So so that's why I didn't do that. But anyhow,
well, you can use your band font.
Oh, that's what you should have done.
Where is it? It's right behind me here. Here you go. Here's my band font.
Surgeon, I can see it. I can see it already.
Yeah. My band's not around anymore.
My
band's been defunct since 2012. So
was High the last album you did before you left for?
Yeah, that's when I was making my departure. We had like the management issues and stuff like that, and I didn't have a whole lot of writing on it, so I was like, all right, And honestly, that hurt bad for me to leave, after being in something so long. It's like seeing another dude, my girlfriend,
Yeah.
Right. So what album did you come back on? I was trying to remember which one it was. I'm over here flipping records.
Ugly Noise.
Ugly Noise, okay.
Yeah. Well, I came back a little before that because Craig Nielsen was playing drums at the time, and they had a show. They had Bang Your Head Festival in Europe, in Germany, and they wanted me to do it. So I agreed to it, and I had to get my passport renewed.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it. Had to get my passport renewed. It came in the same day that my plane left for Germany. And then I show up in Germany and none of those guys were around to pick me up. I think I had like $27 in my wallet or something like that. And I was like, but whatever, I was definitely not prepared for that trip at all. But those guys eventually showed up and, everything was all right.
The follow-up would have been, let's see here. These are not in order anymore. Was this it?
Oh yeah, the self-titled.
Yes. Okay, so I do have them in the right order. I was worried I had them in the wrong order.
Well, they would have done No Place for Disgrace was next. The
reissue. Yeah, we kind of talked about this one though.
Yeah.
I think this self-titled is kind of a forgotten gem in the catalog. I don't think I never hear anybody talking about it or saying anything about it.
I think that
the last three they are, but what's that?
Yeah. I think that thing rips.
I do too.
I mean, someone had given me a copy to listen to, and I thought, whatever. And I had it sitting on my in my record room. And one day I thought, well, I better crack this thing and give it a whirl. And I liked it. I was surprised once again. When bands go through that huge transition, it's always like you're hoping that they find their roots again. So and a lot of that middle catalog is kind of experimental, but I think on that one there were signs of thrash life again. So I think
it started with Ugly Noise. Ugly Noise, you started hearing some of the thrash riffs again, and maybe that's because you were back in there. But then you guys kind of got heavier with each album after that, leading up to the last few.
And this isn't a criticism, by the way. I know bands transition and try to experiment, and I applaud that because I think it's all about creating something. If it's good, it's good. It doesn't have to stick to the exact formula every record. But
totally agree with that.
But I love
unless your Motorhead or AC/DC, then you do.
Yeah, then they pretty much stick to the. But it's worked for them. I mean, we've mentioned Metallica, and we don't even want to get into my anxiety about them because their first three albums have given them so much street cred that whatever they put out, and I think that's their attitude. We can put out anything and people will buy it because of the first three records. But I love to see that, like Flotsam, sort of had that middle area, maybe not as gray as the Metallica areas, but yet these more recent records are just rippers. I mean, they're a return to form in a more thrash mode. So
yeah, that's kind of what's been happening with that record, the self-titled one that you just held up. It was the return of Michael Spencer, and he was actually Jason Newsted's pick when he left the band, and he was from a band called Sentinel Beast. So he joined, but it didn't work out. We ended up using Troy Gregory at the time after that. But that record right there that you just held up marks the return of Michael Spencer and the introduction to Jason Bittner from Shadows Fall, Overkill. He's playing drums on that. But if somebody was to ask me, like, where do I start listening to Flotsam and Jetsam? I would tell them start from the back and work your way to the front because I think our last four records are our strongest releases. And I think even going backwards, like I Am the Weapon is the strongest, Blood in the Water is the next strongest. They're in sequential order going backwards. So we're on a trajectory going upwards right now. We're doing our best writing, and again at the end of it, we're shopping deals right now, and we're not actually shopping. They're calling us to do records. Everybody knows we're off of AFM. So, we're looking at Frontiers, Napalm, definitely there's going to be some more stuff coming out, and it's going to be along the lines of I Am the Weapon, but better. It's just going to keep getting better.
So as far as
hopefully now that everybody's not trying to tour at the same time, you guys will be able to get some wider tours too.
Yeah, hopefully. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
With all the touring and stuff and our economy, things are definitely a struggle for even the big bands right now. I saw a thing the other day where AC/DC's having trouble with their ticket sales. I'm like, AC/DC, really? Wow. Okay. So, you know, hopefully our economy bounces back and people start getting that spark to listen to this stuff again, you know.
Well, that was
Well,
crazy. The
but
week
you
you
have
were
to
supposed
you
to.
have
Oh, go
you
ahead.
have to read the underpining of the ticket sale thing, because
Yes.
ticket sales are $400 or $500, $600 to see AC/DC. I saw
Yeah.
them for $8 at the Salt Palace in 1981 or two, and I realized that times change and all that. But you know, when I saw you guys at the Haltham Theater, it was $30 to $40, and
Yeah.
I felt like that's a reasonable price. That's pricey because you're not a $10 local band, but $30 is certainly much more manageable than 300.
Well, I think
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
pandemic too. I mean, I know you guys had the tour scheduled to come out here, and they ended up getting canceled. But it was one of those things where every single thrash band was trying to tour at the same time. And I think the week you were supposed to play here in Atlanta, Overkill was playing, Havoc was playing. It was like 5 major bands in a week, and you're
Yeah.
trying to figure out. And even Overkill, I saw Overkill that week. Overkill usually sells out the 500-600 seater here, and there were like 150 people at the show. I mean, it
Yeah.
was the craziest thing. I hadn't seen anything like that since the mid '90s. You know, so
Well, from a band perspective, so we could have went ahead and went and did those shows, but the problem with that is, you know, we get a set guarantee for these shows. The problem with it is, like, just say we're going to play a 250 seat hall,
Yeah.
and we only sell 75 tickets or something like that. Well, the next time we come back in town, the promoter's like, well, look, you only sold 750, so I can't give you the guarantee that you got before. So you don't want your guarantees going down, because then, you know, your band's it's going to
Yep.
sink eventually. So that's one thing that our fans were super they understood, you know, exactly what was going on with us, and they were forgiving about it, and they were like, it's cool, you know, we'll catch you the next time around. Nobody was going F you or anything like that, which was very cool. And you know, it's going to save our guarantee. So next time when we come back, we will come back, you know, instead of going, we can't afford to come back now, you know, it gives us the opportunity to come back. So,
Right.
And I
Right
think
on.
we're seeing the band start to play the bigger venues again. You know, some of the bands after the pandemic were playing smaller venues and not selling well. And now, like I said, I'm seeing them all in 500 and above and bigger seaters, and they're selling really well. So hopefully, now that it's spread out a little bit more, you know, I think it'll be a better off for everybody.
Someone is asking about your experience in Brazil.
other than the mosquitoes, it was fantastic. It was an unbelievable experience. We've never been to Brazil before, and Sao Paulo was as far south as you could go, and we loved every second of it. It was a great festival, and that was the Summer Breeze Festival. They have that one in Germany as well, so I'm glad they brought it over to Brazil. Hopefully, they'll ask us to do it again. Generally, it's every 3 years you're available, or they're eligible to do it again. You know, so hopefully they ask us again. I'll bring some mosquito repellent.
So, being in a band, I'm sure you, like everybody else, has seen Spinal Tap a zillion times, and can appreciate the humor of it. So I've got, you know, just from being in my band for 20 years, I have got lots of Spinal Tap stories of the band on stage and whatnot. I love to hear some Spinal Tap stories from Flotsam.
Oh, mostly it's catering. Okay, Florida. There's a couple places in Florida that we won't play anymore because there's a certain promoter down there, and we generally tour in the summertime in the United States. So we're down in Florida. It's what, 97 degrees or something like that. It's blazing hot, and there's nothing. We have no accommodations in our dressing room, and you guys all know we get a rider that says, hey, you know, we need like a 12-pack of beer, tons of water for our drummer, you know, maybe 2 cases. This guy wouldn't even give us water. So he's like, yeah, you can go over to the dollar store and go get your own water. It's right over there. I felt like just packing up my gear and just being like, you know what, but we won't use that promoter ever again because of that.
I don't blame you.
I mean, that one wasn't a funny one, but it is after you look at it afterwards, you know. Spinal Tap-ish went, oh, Compton Terrace. This is a good one. We had dummy cabinets for one of those shows because we only use half stacks. That's all you really need for guitars, right? So going on a stage that size, we're like, man, we can't take a half stack, a metal band with a half stack. It's going to look like a jazz band, you know? So we ended up getting some dummy cabinets. And just before we played, I puked all over myself. And then when we started playing, the wind came up and blew the dummy cabinets down. So
That's
It's funny.
It
I've
was
talked
so
about
fun.
that. I've seen so many bands because it was a huge stage at Compton Terrace, and it's open. It's like a big open stage, and I've seen so many bands use just walls of dummy cabinets. That was Bad Brains did the same thing, and they knocked one of them over. It knocked one of the stacks over. So it was kind of a common thing at Compton Terrace for some reason.
It still is. I mean, I saw KK's Priest just a few months ago, and they had the walls of, Marshall stacks up there, which was cool. But then during the show, while they're playing, somebody was clearly walking behind them with a flashlight, and you could see the flashlight walking through, going through the grills.
Through the speaker grills.
Yep, exactly. It was pretty funny, but anyhow, I mean, it still looks cool. I mean, yeah, it's about putting on a performance,
having the full stacks and
yeah, it's about putting on a
how
show.
many big bands are playing with little tiny amps now hooked into the system, as opposed to the half stacks and the full stacks. So it's amazing how that's changed.
An amp modeler right now.
Yeah.
So everything that's coming at me is coming right from the monitors into me. But yeah, I love having the Marshall stacks behind me so you can feel it. I love feeling it. When you got that turned up. But for traveling, whenever you travel to Europe, the cost of bringing all that stuff or renting all that stuff is different. And then you're doing the throw and goes for big festivals and stuff like that. It's really hard to have all that stuff going.
Well, and man, some of the technology is getting crazy now. They were showing Zach Wild's rig for Pantera, and he's got a guitar tech that all he does is run the computers for the effects for that show, and that's his whole job. He's actually back there running the wah pedal for Zach while he's on stage. It's pretty crazy.
Man.
Yeah.
I want that job.
Yeah.
Right.
So as far as is touring and what have you, I mean, some of the bands that have kind of gotten back together have had kind of the same lineup for an extended period, and it seems to help the continuity of the band. Is that the case with you guys? You've had pretty much the same group.
Yeah, I mean, AK is kind of the anchor of it all. As long as that guy's singing for us, we kind of feel like most of us are interchangeable. Which that kind of sucks for us, but I don't know. It hasn't really affected us too much, I don't think. But as long as AK's still singing, I think it's fine. No.
That's a valid point. So any plans for a tour?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're doing the Milwaukee Metal Fest on May 15th. We're doing the Jimmy Josta, what is it? It's like an all-star jam or something like that. But I don't know. Have you guys ever been to that thing in Milwaukee before?
No, but I know Charlie Belmore. He's been on the show a few times, and he plays in Josta's. But he and his brother Nicky play in that band. Have you got any looks from Hell's Heroes down in Houston? That's a growing event.
Yeah, actually, Ken Mary was just down there with Fifth Angel. He just did.
Yeah, that's right. Huh.
Hell's Heroes is huge about bringing back together bands that haven't been together in a while. That's one of the cool things that they do.
That's hopefully they'll put us on that one every year.
What's that?
That festival's getting bigger and bigger every year. That Hell's Heroes. Yeah.
It looked pretty good size this year.
Yeah, I've been twice.
You were there this year, right? You were there this year, weren't you?
Yeah.
And how was it?
Gamma Side, Corner, Saxon played. Abath did a whole Immortal set. The Cavalera brothers just completely destroyed with the the bestial devastation, schizophrenia thing. I mean, it was even Las Cruces from down out your way, Scott. They got together, and I know Solitude Eternus got together for the first time in 20 years last year. So it's kind of a place for the gathering of angels, devils, or whatever you want. But it's I don't know. I think that would be a perfect event for you guys. I mean, it's wildly, it's growing, and but man, people are just wild for the older stuff, you know, for the older bands to get back together, and that would be such a rare.
What's amazed me is how many young kids are really getting into the old stuff. Like, I'm shocked how many show. It's one thing to see the kids there. That's always been a thing. But I'll see kids there singing every verse to every song.
Yeah.
Songs that I've been listening to for 40 years that I don't know every word to. A lot of these young kids know every. It's amazing seeing that again, because that disappeared for a long time.
Yeah. I had kids at that festival. I mean, 16, 17 years old with battle jackets and Reeboks that they must have bought on Amazon or whatever, or eBay, and tight jeans. And they were handing out pins and download cards and saying, "Here, check out our thrash band," and whatever. And it was, I mean, it was just like the old days where guys would be out handing out flyers along the Sunset Strip. But so it's encouraging to see that there is a young audience, and the fact that you guys are, after all these years, are still playing, I think is pretty cool, because there's a whole another layer to the audience, not just dads and grandfathers and fathers. Now it's down deep into the sons and grandsons.
I totally agree. It's kind of funny that we're talking about this, because I've got two kids. They're older, you know, they're in their 30s. But my youngest, when she was in high school, she's like, "Daddy, you got to go check out my friend's band." And so I'm like, "All right, I'll go check it out." So I get down there. It's full on thrash band. It's just loud as heck. I'm like, "Oh, my ears are hurting. What the hell?" You know, I'm the old guy now, and these young kids are just, they're carrying the torch, you know. So that makes me super proud.
Yeah,
It's cool to see the young kids. Yeah, we talked about this a couple times, but yeah, and last time I was in Phoenix too. I usually try to check out some local bands, and for a long time, you know, when I was a kid, the oldest guy and the biggest band was like 26 years old. All the bands were young kids, you know, and in the late 90s, all through the 2000s, it was 40-year-old guys in all the local bands. All the young kids had kind of vanished, you know. And it was cool when I went back to Phoenix like a year and a half ago. I went to see some shows with some friends, and I started seeing a lot of young kids playing again. So again, it's kind of cool to see the young guys getting out there in a way that they seem to have stopped for a long time.
Yeah, we played a show one time at a club in, I think it was in Phoenix. We played a show I think it was Phoenix. We played a show. It was like a punk club in Phoenix, and it was like playing at 1 o'clock in the morning, because we were the last band on. But the band that played right before us, they were fantastic. And after the show, I walked up to the drummer to tell him, it's like, "Man, you guys were fantastic." And he goes, the dude's like, "Dude," and he started doing this. I'm like, he's like, "You don't even know." He goes, I was such a big fan of your band when I was a kid." And I'm like, "Oh, geez." Now I just feel old. You know, I bought your second album when I was like in junior high school. Oh, damn.
Yeah, I saw recently a lady walk out of like Walmart. She was in her like her late 60s, early 70s with an Iron Maiden shirt and on. And I'm thinking, man, that's an old lady to be wearing that. But then I start thinking in the back of my head, oh, she's only 15 years older than I am. She was there, you know.
It's cool that our craft is going to continue, you know, and it's not just something that was a fad for the last 25 years or whatever. It's going to cycle back through, and it's definitely made its mark on the music industry for sure.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, we were playing shows in like 2015, and I've got videos of all these kids that are literally kids wearing with long hair, wearing denim vests with the patches on it, and you know, the big one. I'm like, "What are you?" And the high-heeled white sneakers. I'm like, "Man, did you guys go back to 1985 to buy your clothes? What the heck, man?" It was freaking awesome. I loved it, but it was just weird seeing all these young kids wearing exactly what we were wearing back in, you know, the mid 80s.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that, because I have a pair of high tops, white high tops, right? And I have like, they're Vans high tops, but I've got, I think 38 or 40 pairs. I have a problem with Vans. I've got whatever. Anyways, so I've got these white high tops. I'm like, "Oh, this is coming back. I'm going to wear these. I'm going to start wearing these." And I put them on. I'm like, old guy trying to look like a young guy. And I was like, "No, this ain't going to happen. I got to just stick with my slip-ons."
Yeah, I get that. Well, I don't have a problem at all with collecting things. So. My wife might tell you something different, but you know. Well, anyhow, we need to cut it short because I know you've got to go somewhere, but not short, but cut it close because we're almost at an hour. But is there
I can't
anything
even
else you
believe it's
wanted to
been an
add?
hour.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we do. We
flies.
just sit around and talk music. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say? I mean, if you wanted to answer one more question, I was kind of curious if there was any bands you loved opening for or who had opened for you, or any bands you hated that you opened for or opened for you.
No, we pretty much get along with everybody. You know, we try to cut up with everybody. There's a couple bands that we've offended because we like to do a lot of joking around and stuff like that, and some people don't have that great of a sense of humor. So, but that makes it even way more fun for us to do that. Always loved playing with Megadeth and Destruction too. You know, we've done tons of tours with Destruction. Love those guys. Hopefully someday Sacred Reich and us will do something together as far as a tour. Right
That would
now
be a
in the
great tour.
makes, we're talking about Fifth Angel and Flotsam, so that we might make Ken do some double duty. I'm not sure if that's going to happen yet, but we're talking about it.
That's amazing though that in 40 years you guys haven't toured with Sacred Reich. That's oh, then again they were gone for 20 years too, but still that's nuts.
Did you guys ever play at all with Sacred Reich?
Nope.
What's that?
Did you ever play at all with Sacred Reich ever?
We played with them at some benefit about 10 years ago, and that was the only time.
So I have a question in closing.
Yep.
Name 3 bands that were critical to your music journey.
Oh, geez. This should be pretty easy. Ozzy Osbourne, Blues of Oz. I'll even name the record on that one because that was AC/DC, Powerage. And the third one, this is definitely off topic, but Steve Morse band, the Dixie Dregs. Anything with Steve Morse on it, that was. I can't play like that guy, but I certainly tried for the last 40 years.
That's hilarious because I'm gonna walk away from the computer, which I know is a bad thing.
We all love Steve Morse
Do
here.
you think it was going to be the Osric
I was
Tentacle?
just playing. Have you guys ever heard this record? Rob Castle's Evening Pastoral.
No,
I haven't heard that one.
This is Rob Castle's is the singer. The guitar player on this album is Steve Morse.
Oh, he's done a million.
This is a fantastic record. I never even heard of until like a year ago, and I'm like, and it's from like 77, 78. It's like, damn, this is a good album.
I'm searching for that tonight.
yeah. He plays on every single song, and he's got songwriting credits on it as well. So yeah,
I just remember
Castle's Evening Pastoral.
all the guitar magazines every year. Steve Morse was like the #1 guitarist in the world, to the point where he said, "Don't list me on your lists anymore."
Spandex is coming back. Everybody needs to break out their leather.
We'll leave that for hair metal Rob. That's not happening. It's not happening in Casa de Carcas.
We can let the 20-year-olds wear the spandex. Nobody wants to see my fat ass in a pair of spandex. So
you guys have seen the theme, right? With Winnie the Pooh, where it's like old guys with spandex, and it's a Winnie the Pooh from the back of him, it's pretty funny. If you haven't seen it, you should search it.
I know you're saying. And I've seen some of that in person in clubs, because there are still guys that do the spandex to shows way too late.
Bald Metal Rob.
Yeah,
right on.
We're gonna end it on spandex. Oh my God.
Yeah, we're gonna end it on spandex. But hey, Michael, hang out for you. I'm gonna play the intro. We'll do our little at the end of the show. We always say metal will prevail, and we do this kind of stuff and act like idiots. But hang on for like just 2 minutes after the intro, just so we can just say thank you and everything. So, but that's it for this episode. For episode number 263. I appreciate all you guys watching. We had close to 100 people watching live at one point, which is quite a bit, but these all post on the Metal Roundtable YouTube channel and on the No Life Till Metal YouTube channel. So you should be able to watch it after the fact. I know we were half an hour early today, so a few people may have missed that, not seeing that we posted a different time. So I apologize for that. But so anyhow, for episode number 263, you know how we do it. Metal will prevail. And this is where I leave you all hanging as I do the unprofessional thing here.